Sports Florida and Mommy in Sports. And today we're chatting with Joy Taylor of the Zaslow and Joy FM 104.3, The Ticket, and she is also on CBSSports.com. Joy, thanks so much for chatting with me.
Of course, Kristen.
So I thought it was kind of interesting to talk about the Britt McHenry story because it broke yesterday and it has been a complete firestorm on social media. You guys were talking about it on your radio show this morning. We've been tweeting back and forth and texting. So I thought it was interesting for both of us to kind of chat about it because we're both women in sports and we have similar takes and we kind of disagree on a couple points. So first of all, I want to know what your reaction was when you first saw the video and heard what she had said and what had transpired.
When I first saw the video, I originally thought that she was angry because the person was charging her too much to park her car in a garage. So my initial reaction was, wow, I mean, are you stupid? Like, you have to know how much you have to pay to park before you park there. Like, you can't get mad at the person who's just charging you to park there. That's their job, you know, like,
right.
That's silly. But then I realized that her car had been towed. So that sort of changed my perspective on it because getting your car towed is a miserable experience no matter what reason you get your car towed. Your car is either being towed because you parked in the wrong place, and then that costs hundreds of dollars to get it out. Your car is broken down, which doesn't put you in a good mood, or your car is getting repoed, which means your life is in shambles. So no scenario where you're getting your car towed are you in a good mood. But my initial reaction to hearing what she said to the woman was, wow, you know, you sound very entitled, you sound very privileged, you sound mean, you sound like a 14-year-old girl, and it just was it was kind of off-putting the way that she felt that, not kind of off-putting, it was off-putting, the way that she felt that she could just talk to someone that way. That was my initial response to seeing it.
Right, and when I saw it, the first thing I thought was, well, half of the video she's mumbling to herself, like she's talking to her purse, so that wasn't directed at the person she was talking to, but then at the end she hurled some pretty nasty insults. And I thought about it for a second. Have I ever been mean to someone? Yeah, I remember on my honeymoon I was so mad that they shut down breakfast early, and my husband's like, you were really rude. But I didn't, like, physically make fun of his appearance. I was just really mad and hungry and hungover, and I couldn't get my fix. But what we haven't seen, Joy, is the other side. We haven't heard what the woman was saying to her. That video was clearly edited. You see a lot of jump cuts. So I think it's interesting to see what might have incited that tirade.
Oh, for sure. That was the next thing that I thought was, where's the rest of the video? It's very convenient that we're only hearing what Britt McHenry is saying to the woman and not what the woman is saying back. Now, that video may eventually come out, and let's assume that the woman was just normal, you know, maybe not overly pleasant, but she was just having normal responses to the situation. Let's just assume that that is the case, because that's all we have to base it off of right now. That being the case, my thoughts, once I started to digest what happened and I was reading on social media the reactions that people were having to it, the things they were tweeting to her, the things they were posting on her Instagram page, and my thoughts immediately turned to, well, everyone's mad that Britt McHenry was mean to this woman, so their reaction is then to be mean to Britt McHenry? How does that work?
It's like a karmic conundrum because everyone's being unkind to her because of her unkindness. And shouldn't we all empower women? I mean, obviously she made a mistake, but why do we all do this in social media? You know, I just did an inspiration breakfast with Jim Kelly, and he stood up before this crowd and said, you know, everyone is trying to find the negative and call you out and criticize you on social media. Why can't we all just be the bright spot? And that opens up a larger conversation to cyberbullying and everything that Kurt Schilling went through with his daughter. It's why are we all so quick to be so mean on social media?
Well, because there's a certain level of, this is anonymous, you know, no one's going to know it's really me. And you know how it is when you call into a customer service representative for your cable company or your phone bill was over and you're rude, and it's very easy to be rude because you're not seeing this person face to face. It's harder, you know, it's this, you get to hide behind your computer screen. So it gives people this empowerment that I can say whatever I want and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's a weird thing because all of us fall into it. I'm sure there's things I've said on social media that I might not say to the person's face because you're there and you don't feel like being that mean. Like you don't want to see the person's reaction, you know? But there comes a point where it's, to me, how is that the thought that comes to your mind to say something like that? Like to say that someone should get fired, that's really what started to bother me about the situation is, why is it always everyone's response, fire them? It's
right.
economy in the world
Team
that
loses a few games, fire the coach. She makes a mistake, fire the reporter. So do you feel like, do you agree with what people are saying on social media? Do you think that she should be fired, that the suspension was the perfect, appropriate response? Do you think her career can rebound from this incident?
I think her career will rebound because people will forget about this in a couple days, like we do with everything that we're outraged about. So yeah, I think she'll be fine because it's fake outrage to begin with. So she'll be fine. But the suspension, look, they had to suspend her. That's just the way it goes these days. You get your suspension, you move on. But as far as people saying that she should be fired, I really can't respect people that react that way to something like this. She didn't physically attack her. She didn't threaten her life. She didn't threaten her safety. She didn't make any advances to her in any way. She said some mean things. And I know people are sensitive about that, and they always bring up the word bullying. Look, man, everyone's been bullied in their life. You're not exclusive. Everyone at some point or another has had someone say something mean to them on purpose, vindictively. And what she did to me wasn't bullying. She had a temper tantrum. So now every time that someone has a temper tantrum, they're a bully? No. There are two
No,
different.
Christian Bale had a temper tantrum. He's still working in Hollywood. And the interesting thing was she didn't have a temper tantrum on set. It wasn't on the sidelines. It wasn't in a work meeting. She was in a very stressful situation. It was personal. And with social media today, everything and everyone has the capability to record things and instantaneously shoot it out to millions of people. Had this happened 10 years ago, no one would have known. How many male reporters have probably gotten in fights and altercations at car rental places, but nobody has ever heard about it? And that brings up another point. I want to kind of put you on the spot. And do you think if Britt was a male as opposed to a female and said these things, people would have the same reaction, or do you think that's a non-issue?
I do think that they would, because the male reporter would have said it in a different way. He would have, but he still would have sounded entitled. And I do think that the fact that Britt McHenry is a pretty girl, it's physically or attacking someone's physical appearance has something to do with it. But I think if a man did it, it would still sound the same way. To me, it's not as much a woman-on-woman issue as it is just a human situation, But to me, it just didn't come across as something other than someone having a temper tantrum. And you're right. But a lot of people were bringing up, the fact that she threw her job out there and the fact that she is in
The
public
spotlight, yep.
Right. So she should carry herself differently, which I agree with. She was wrong. She should have known better. Come on. She works in the news. She knows how these things work. She had a moment, a lapse of judgment, and that's now she has to deal with the fallout from it. But the idea that everyone is saying that she's a terrible person and she should be fired and she should feel ashamed of herself and she should go through all this suffering because she said some mean things to a tow truck driving facility attendant is a bit hypocritical to me. And by a bit hypocritical, I mean, oh my God, so hypocritical. Please, everyone relax. Because to me, everyone has had this moment. What would happen if the cable company released all of the calls that you've had?
Isn't that a reality show? Isn't there like a tow truck show where people get in fights all the time? I mean, this isn't like national news. People fight with tow truck people all the time.
Right. Not even that. Like, take the tow truck company situation out of it, which I do think is important, but let's just take that out of it for argument's sake. If people had their phone calls that they call into customer service representatives frustrated released, I mean, how would we judge them? How would we feel about that? Think of your personal bad moments where you've lost your temper and said something horrible to your husband or your sister or your brother
Kids.
or your kids or your friends.
Right.
And it was recorded, and taken out of context. You would feel ashamed, of course, but what would your employer say? And then people make the argument, well, she's a professional, she's in the spotlight, so she should always carry herself that way. Do you act like a professional at home? Because I know I certainly don't.
Well, not at home, but
Dresses
in
at home.
public, especially if you're in public and people know who you are.
Sure.
You have to act a certain way. I think there's two things, like there's two lapses in judgment for her, though. One, they told her she was being recorded. At that point, she should have zipped it. That's common sense. And two, she shouldn't have thrown out, do you know who I am? Because most likely they wouldn't have known who she was, and this would never have happened if she hadn't thrown that out. Have you ever done that? Have you ever pulled the, don't you know who I am? I'm Joy Taylor.
I've never pulled the I'm Joy Taylor because that is so meaningless. It would be useless. I've definitely pulled the diva move when I am trying to get into the club and this is just taking too long. Okay, this is taking too long. I need to get inside. I need to go party. But certainly never being rude and never in a situation like that because it means nothing. I mean, and that's really what's comical about it to me is that she's throwing it out there. You know, she's not Barbara Walters. You know, she's not.
No, but she does work for a national network, and this isn't the first time she's been embroiled in drama. I don't know if you remember, but last year, Jay Gruden called her an amateur when she had reported that RG3 alienated himself from his teammates, and she was blasted in the media by that. But ESPN stood behind her, and then recently, I think you saw the blog post because we were talking about it on Twitter today, Incidental Justice. She's a lawyer. She claimed she was insulted by Britt. Now, you think the blog post is ridiculous. I actually felt like Britt's tone in those tweets was a little bit entitled as well, and I think Britt took it a little too personally, which is why we all need to sort of chill out. It's social media. It's not real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought the blog was a little. She was contradicting herself. You know, she wanted to put a point out there that she didn't like how women are sexualized in the media. And
right. This is the lawyer, not Britt. The lawyer was saying that.
Right, the lawyer did that. And Brittany, she did kind of take it personally. And she was being a little overly sensitive. Who isn't, which brings me back to my original point, who has never done all of these things that she's doing, that she's being crucified for. But she was overly sensitive. But then I felt like the blogger was then being overly sensitive. You can't put something like that out there and not expect responses. This is Twitter. That's what the point of it is. You're putting it out there to make a point, and then when someone disagrees with you, you feel like they're attacking you. That's not the way that it works. If you don't want your opinion to be attacked, don't share it. That's just the way it goes. I put opinions out there that people disagree with. You have to stand by what you say.
No, you have to be very careful about what you put out there. And as a blogger, I always read and reread what I put out there, because if I'm going to make a blanket statement, I need to be able to back that up and have a backbone and not get sensitive. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Britt, because, you know, as in television, they need you to be likable. They need the people working for them to be likable to get viewers. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when she comes back. If this helps her career because now everybody knows who she is, or if this hurts her. But I do, in some ways, when I was watching the video, my first instinct was to judge her inside. I was like, wow, that's really mean. Like, that is so not classy. But then on the other hand, I was like, ooh, I feel bad for her because she is not going to be proud, and neither is her mama when she sees that. So I sort of feel bad for her, and I hope that she can rebound. What did you think of her apology? And then I'll let you go. Did you think it was genuine, or do you think it was pretty staged?
Sure. I mean, I think most apologies are genuine.
You do?
Well, I don't like the idea that just because you got caught and you're dealing with something means that you're not sorry. You can still be sorry. You're not as sorry if you got ahead of it and admitted that you did it, of course, but that doesn't mean that you're not sorry for what you did. People always want. What bothers me the most about this whole situation really is just the public shaming element of it, that everyone feels like they have the right to tell you what a terrible person you are and what you should do to pay penance to make them feel better about what you did to someone that they don't even know. And it's always back to this whole thing where everyone feels like their opinion is the most important opinion, that everyone should do what they feel is correct, and if you disagree with them, then you're a bad person. I got all day today when I was talking about this that I think it's right what she did, and I don't stick up for the little guy, and I don't know what it's like to be bullied, and my response to all of it is, you don't know me. You don't, you know, like,
yeah.
You know, I choose to tell you about myself, you know, and it's not that simple. And the public shaming thing is what makes me super, super uncomfortable, because we're all so flawed. We could have, any one of us could have a moment like this. And it's hypocritical to me that people say that they wouldn't. They can. It can happen.
I think it's completely hypocritical what people are doing to her on Twitter, and I think, you know, we all might disagree with it, but we all have to try not to judge her. And you and I both agree. We both work in the Miami market, and we both are for empowering each other and empowering women. There's enough going around out there for us all to stick up for each other and help each other, and I think more people need to do that with Britt. While it was mean, and it shows a little bit about her character, I don't think that she acts like that all the time. Or maybe she does, who knows, but we'll see. All right, Joy, I know you have to get back to work at CBS, so thanks for debating with me, and maybe another time we can talk about public shaming, because I think we could go for like an hour on that topic.
I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, all right, I'll see you soon. Thank you.